Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm showing you how to make one of my favorite Puerto Rican plantain recipes, Canoas de Plátano. These are ripe plantains stuffed with picadillo filling and lots of melty cheese. It's a dish that perfectly captures that sweet and savory flavor combo. So let me show you how I like to make mine. We start by making our picadillo, which I'm sure you already know stands alone beautifully on its own. Whenever I make picadillo as like a component for another dish, it's so hard to keep my husband away from it. And I can't even judge him because I always end up eating a few spoonfuls before I finish the recipe. So anyway, we're sauteing our onions and bell peppers in some oil before adding in our sofrito. If you don't have sofrito here, you could just substitute with some minced garlic and cilantro. But really nothing can beat sofrito, so definitely recommend making some. I have a recipe in my archives if you need one, or you can buy a jar at the store. Then we're adding our pound of ground beef, our sazon and adobo seasoning. And you know how it goes with ground beef, you got to break it up as you're cooking. I don't know, actually recently I've seen some cooks just letting this kind of sear as a brick before they break into it. And I have tried that. I'm not opposed to it. It works, but I still just break this up as soon as it hits the pan. The goal here is just to get our ground beef broken into pieces and browned really well. At this stage, I sometimes will add tomato sauce and pimento olives, but I make my picadillo a little different depending on the recipe I'm using it for. And for these canoas, I like to just keep it really simple. So once that beef is cooked through, we're gonna go ahead and cover this, turn the heat off, and just set it aside while we prep our plátanos. So for this recipe, I'm making 4 canoas. So I have 4 ripe plantains here. You want your plantains to be a deep color of yellow with brown spots all around. They should be soft to the touch because we want them to have that subtle sweetness. So we're just peeling our plantains here. I like to cut off the tips and then just use a knife to run down the length of them, and the peel should come right off. And then I'm just adding these to a parchment lined baking sheet and drizzling some olive oil over them. A lot of canoa recipes require you to deep fry the plantains, but I just like to avoid deep frying when possible. So I've found that just rubbing them with oil and baking them at 400 degrees for about 20 minutes does the trick. And then from there, we're just running a knife down the length of them, cutting almost all the way through, but not all the way through, and then using our spoon to gently open them up. And this is where they get their name from, because you'll notice that they really do look like a canoe, which a fun fact I learned while doing some research for this recipe is that the word canoe has Taino origins. So yeah, I've found that just using the spoon to gently wedge these open does the trick here. And then you are ready to fill them with all of the goodness. So I like to do a combination of melted cheddar and mozzarella cheese, but you can do really whatever kind of cheese you enjoy. And I like to put a layer down in the base of the canoas first before adding a generous spoonful of that picadillo filling. The wider that you're able to get the plantains to open up, the more filling you can really get in there. And then, of course, we have to top everything off again with more of that melted cheese because it's like what brings the whole recipe together, honestly. Of course, you could make this without cheese, but like, why would you do that? If you want to get crazy and make this almost more like pastelón, you could definitely do more layers, like a smaller cheese layer, a smaller picadillo layer, and then just keep repeating that if you want. But I kind of just keep it simple and just do 2 layers of cheese and a bunch of picadillo in the middle. And then I lower the oven to 350 degrees to finish these off because we're really just getting the cheese melted at this step, which only takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And then your canoas are all done and you're ready to serve topped with really whatever you like. I typically do the cilantro lime sauce that I love making and some fresh cilantro just to add some freshness. And then you are ready to dig in. These have that perfect blend of sweet and savory thanks to the ripe plantains. And there's a reason that we have so many recipes with these flavor combinations in Puerto Rican cuisine. If you give these a try, please let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next time. Ooh, and if you like these, definitely try my piononos and my pastelón recipe. Okay, bye.